It is week 17, and we're going into the draft. We are near the end of the season where everybody's draft spots are set up. And looking at it right now, we got the Giants going first. Now, obviously, they're going after Shedeur Sanders. I'm not surprised by that. It's starting to come out that I think he doesn't want to go to New York, but Shedeur needs to be the answer for the Giants, especially since Daniel Jones was asked to be cut after giving him all that money. You really don't have a future without a quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders is the guy that's going to be. He is going to be that future. If you can try to work something out and keep him happy, that'll be perfect. But I don't want a situation where the Giants are doing way too much for Shedeur Sanders unless it really is a need that needs to be focused on. And then looking at it at number 2, Travis Hunter. Obviously, number 2, he is going to the Patriots. Like Travis Hunter is going to be the answer for the Patriots on both defense and offense. He'll easily be wide receiver 1 unless they go after T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, or anybody else like that. So he'll easily be involved in that offense defensively across from Christian Gonzalez. That'll be a great one too, where that passing defense will start to get a lot better, and they just need to add some little bit more to the defense. Now going into 3, 4, and 5. 3, I think the Raiders are going to trade up because with that win against the Jaguars, they pretty much ruined their spot, and they don't want the Titans to take the only other quarterback that's really available in this draft. The Browns might make a move, but I don't think they really are because they have so much money into Deshaun Watson. So I think a trade with the Jaguars, at least in this mock draft. There's still 2 more weeks to go with. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But with that trade going up and selecting Cam Ward to finally have a quarterback that could help you, and I don't think you have to give up so much to move up in this draft. Maybe a couple draft picks here and there with some swaps, whatever. But I think moving up to get the only other quarterback that's really going to be good coming out of here is a key to get for the Raiders. And then for the Titans, I think they're going to trade Jeffrey Simmons or Harold Landry, maybe get some good draft picks out of that. And so taking Abdul Carter to be that new edge rusher down in Tennessee would be perfect. And then Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, they're pretty much offensive tackle 1A and offensive tackle 1B, depending on how you want to put them. They are both great offensive linemen, some of the best that have come out of the draft, and they will be both vital linemen in this years to come. Will Campbell will be the first one. I think he's way better than Kelvin Banks, but Kelvin Banks is still great. And then finishing off with the Panthers getting that new D-line help with Mason Graham from. And now going on to 8 through 14, starting with the Jets. Now, I do think the Jets, as much as there's the conversation of a quarterback help, I don't see any good quarterbacks after this. They might take Jalen Milroe in the second round as just a quarterback piece to have. Aaron Rodgers stays, or maybe they sign somebody. But Michael Williams from Georgia would be perfect for them because they're going to need D-line help, especially with what's been happening with that defense. It's been absolutely awful. And maybe they go after and get Mike Vrabel. And so getting some defense for a defensive-minded coach is perfect. And then James Pierce to the Bears. They really only have Montez Sweat off that D-line. So getting a good edge rusher, especially James Pierce, would be a good steal for them. There is a lot of good edge rushers in this draft. James Pierce is one of the top echelon ones. And then looking at the Commanders, now they have pick 24 as of right now, but I see them making a trade. I believe this pick was the Saints because the Saints are dealing with cap hell. They're probably going to lose a lot of people. They're going to have to cut money, but I think they're also going to have to cut where they pick in the draft because obviously the higher you pick, the more money you have to spend on a rookie that you draft. So I think they're going to try to push back just so they don't have to worry so much about their money because they are in cap hell. They're at the, I think, negative $40 million in cap hell. But with that saying, the Commanders are going to try to move up and they're going to take Tedero McMillan, put him right next to Scary Terry, and that's going to be a terrible 1-2 punch. I didn't mean terrible as like terrible it's going to be bad, but it's going to be terrible just to deal with on the defensive side. And then looking at the Niners, Niners kind of remind me of another team that needs to just find a way to not have to draft. This kind of reminds me of draft day with the 49ers. They're like the Seahawks where they're so happy to get their picks, but they don't really have any money. It would save them a lot of cap space if they drop back, but I don't think they will. And they're going to take Aronte Iseri. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. I'm not entirely sure, but one of the better tackles in the draft. I think in most boards he's number 3 or number 4. At least I know he most likely will be. But another good one, another good lineman out of Minnesota, and just with Trent Williams pretty much done for this year. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with him the rest of his career. We don't know what's going on with that Niners O line in general. So this is obviously going to be a good pick for them just to rebuild an O line that's starting to pretty much break apart, but no one seems to look at it because the Niners are just dealing with injuries everywhere. And then the Dolphins going after Will Johnson. I I don't know if Will Johnson will fall this much to 12. He is a great corner. He has a lot of viable options of places where to go. But I think the Dolphins are really the first team, unless someone trades up, that will take someone at corner as their first round pick. I know Travis Hunter, but he's also a wide receiver, and he's pretty much projected to be one of the better ones to be picked, either one or two. But Will Johnson just being a corner, I just see him kind of being that first corner to be taken just because the talent he has, what he's shown in college. I think he could easily translate that to the NFL, and the Dolphins will go after him because that passing defense is god awful. And then Malachi Starks for the Colts. You want to talk about another team that is terrible in the passing game? Malachi Starks, great safety out of Georgia. I will say he kind of makes me think that he might be a bit of a bust. I don't know why, but I have kind of just that feeling after watching the SEC championship and not looking at just what he done because I don't have a full memory and just pulling it up. It's not going to say the full story, but I just can see Malachi Starks either being a really great safety or he's going to turn into a bit of a bust. And then lastly, with the Bengals, getting Jalen Walker will be a key part to a defense that is non existent. Zach Taylor is going to be traded, and they will just figure it out from there who's going to be their head coach, and they will figure out what this team will be. But Jalen Walker from Georgia is going to be a great linebacker. I'm pretty sure he won the Dick Butkus Award. And now moving on to the more middle of the pack. Now, Cowboys have been winning. It's kind of been screwing them in the draft, but it could still be vital for them. They can have just getting some wins there, building up just what you have. You're still going to get Ashton Genty. I don't think anybody else is going to draft a running back in this draft unless somebody really needs one and they want to trade up for Ashton Genty because I think he's a one of one. I don't think there's going to be a running back like him for a good minute. There is some good running backs later on in the draft. Omar Hampton or Marion Hampton from North Carolina. And I believe I can't think off the top of my head, but I do believe there's another running back. I can't think right now. It is kind of late, but Ashton Genty seems to be one of a kind. He might break the all-time rushing record in college football, but we'll see. But he'll easily go to the Cowboys. Have a scary running back who hopefully can transfer it to the NFL. I really hope he does. You'll have CeeDee Lamb. You'll have Ferguson. You'll have a good mix and hopefully a healthy Dak Prescott, and you're good to go. Now, with the Cardinals, you don't have a good head coach, at least in my opinion. Kyler Murray is starting to show that he could be a bust. he's kind of on thin ice right now. Getting an offensive weapon is going to be a move they're going to make, that they're going to hope that Luther Burden turns out to be a Hall of Fame wide receiver, because they're not giving Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball. And when they do, there's not much going on there. He's showing flashes, but we're not seeing a full top echelon wide receiver. So getting Luther Burden is going to be something that's going to try to save Kyler Murray and the head coach to keep in their jobs. Now for the Buccaneers, I think it's just time to start focusing on that defense. Nick Scordon out of Texas A&M, a great edge rusher. Not one that's really eye-catching, but just he does everything right. And with the Buccaneers, they just need to add to that defense that's starting to get older. Obviously, from the linebacker position, they're dealing with that, but it's just they need to work out some things. And now for the Seahawks, they could easily go after a quarterback, but again, a weak class. They might just spend one more year with Geno Smith. If they don't make the playoffs, they'll really push for a quarterback. If they make the playoffs, maybe they'll kind of think about it, or see at least. But getting O-line help is something that is critical for them. They started well with having a lot of focus on the defense, especially with the new head coach McDonald, but they need to start going after that O-line help. Josh Simmons at Ohio State could be helpful, but he's not somebody that is a top tier tackle. He's just one of the better tackles that are left in this draft. Now, Kenneth Grant from Michigan will help out the Falcons entirely, because there is no D line help. They do not have a great defensive line. Their defense in general is good, but that D line is a big struggle. Tyler Warren will give the Chargers another great weapon, and especially with Justin Herbert having really no wide receivers, that's obviously going to be a big issue. They might take Colston Loveland out of Michigan, because Harbaugh was at Michigan and just could be somebody that they could pick up just because he already knows Harbaugh. There's already a relationship there. But I really hope that kind of a cooler heads prevail and you take the tight end that can really help you, which is Tyler Warren, who could be a great weapon for Justin Herbert, who doesn't really have much wide receiver help. And now, lastly, with Walter Nolan for the Houston Texans, it's just a move to build more O line, because Laramie Tunsil isn't getting any younger. I think he's definitely has a lot of good years still left with him, but not much help else on that O line. I think adding one more lineman to help you out. Don't know where exactly he's going to be, either tackle or guard, but Nolan could be a really good asset for the Texans. And I know, as much as they probably will need a wide receiver, especially now that Tank Dell is going down and probably be out for next year, you probably won't re-sign Stephon Diggs, so you're gonna need a wide receiver. But there's enough wide receivers in this draft where they can take one easily in the second or third round if they need one. And now going on to the mid 20s. Now the Broncos are going to take Colston Loveland. Loveland, another good tight end. Broncos need a tight end, especially with a head coach like Sean Payton. With an offense that he has, he loves his tight ends. He loved Jimmy Graham in New Orleans, and he's going to love Colston Loveland. He's going to be a perfect weapon for the Broncos to help out Bo Nix. You have Cortland Sutton, you have Troy Franklin, and now you'll have Colston Loveland to help you out. And now with Siobhan Revell Jr. out of East Carolina, there is a bit of a question mark with playing at East Carolina compared to a Benjamin Morrison at Notre Dame, who is going to get picked next. I like what the Rams are doing so far with this defense. Chris Shula has really done a good job at evolving as the season has gone on. They just picked up Emmanuel Forbes. Hopefully they could fix him. But with corners like Darius Williams, Akella Witherspoon kind of on the end of their careers, they do need a younger corner to help fill that role. Benjamin Morrison could be a good asset. Javon Revell just shows to be an athlete more. Yes, he hasn't faced the competition, but there could still just be more to catch from there. But with the Saints now picking at 24, Benjamin Morrison, they're going to want to replace Marshawn Lattimore. They're going to want to find their new corner of the future. And I think already you have Alontae Taylor. Benjamin Morrison could be a great number two to have. And that could be just a great 1-2 for you, and you pretty much didn't lose anything with Lattimore, and you gained more draft picks with it. And now with the Steelers, that defense is pretty much what the Steelers are defined by. Derek Harmon from Oregon is a perfect D lineman, big body, going to be great coming on the inside, especially in the running game, which the Steelers have started to struggle with. I mean, not to say much. They went up against Derrick Henry, but it's still just a bit of an issue. And for the Ravens on the other side, Shamar Stewart from the D line out of Texas A&M, another just big guy that can help them out. For a defense that I can't tell if it's lacking or it just doesn't want to show up, because sometimes it does makes great plays and does everything right, and then other days it forgot how to play football. I don't know what exactly the answer is going to be, but Shamar Stewart could be a big answer to something the Ravens are been struggling with. And now we're going on to the Packers. As much as they focus on that defense, it has become a very scary defensive secondary. The D line adds a lot of pressure. But one thing that has become a constant issue is it seems like Jordan Love is pulling out the Brett Favre package. And not to say because he just likes to make every throw he can, but it seems like sometimes it's set up a bit with pressure that he needs to get that first read going when that first read is being blanketed. So Cameron Williams would be a great add, and especially with a bit of a money issue, Cameron Williams could help come in and hopefully be a day one starter and fix kind of that cap issue that you have, because it's probably going to have to cut some money, especially when you're paying a lot of guys not to be as good. And now for the Eagles, adding more D line help mostly on the edge instead of the interior. You already have the big guys with Carter and Davis, but having Landon Jackson, not much of a numbers guy, doesn't have the best stats, but still a good edge rusher to have. And especially as your team has that window to perform, that defense has to continue to be rock solid. Offense, you have one of the best O lines of all time. You have Saquon Barkley going to be on his year two. You're going to have Jalen Hurts continuing to play great, and hopefully full seasons from A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and you can turn this team pretty much into a Super Bowl team for the next 2 to 3 years. But Landon Jackson is going to be a part of this Super Bowl caliber team in the future. And now for the last four picks. I was going to make a joke about the Bills trading with the Chiefs and getting another wide receiver for the future, but I think the Bills are going to finally learn from their mistakes. They might not take the right receiver because we could just see in the future that it might not working out, but I think Emeka Ibuka, as much as he kind of gets overshadowed, he got last year by Marvin Harrison Jr. and now this year by Jeremiah Smith. I think he'll be a great asset for the Bills, especially when they don't have a clear wide receiver one. Khalil Shakir has looked great, but we don't know. Wyatt Millum from West Virginia for the Vikings. I don't know who their quarterback is, but they're gonna need O-line help, especially since we don't know when Darius coming back or if they're gonna have him at all. For the Lions, now maybe Tyleik Williams is a doctor and he can save the rest of this team from being injured, but as of right now, he's going to be a D tackle in a position that they're going to need help. They have the edge rushers, especially with Aiden Hutchinson, who is looking like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. They have the linebackers. They have the corners. They have the safeties. It was so good, and their depth has been so good that they've still managed to stay afloat. and rocking the NFC North, one of the more competitive conferences. And they're going to need Tyreek Williams to help them out. And lastly, the Chiefs. I don't think they're going to keep Hollywood Brown. Who knows about DeAndre Hopkins? But having Xavier Worthy and Isaiah Bond, they might have another Legion of Zoom that they had with Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, Byron Pringle, having all those guys just zooming across the field and making great plays. Don't know if they could turn them into elite route runners and making great catches, but if they can just continue to grow that we've seen from Xavier Worthy, this Chiefs offense can go back to the way it used to be, not this black magic that they keep doing every single week and somehow is going to get them to another Super Bowl, and then they're going to draft Isaiah Bond and maybe even get a fourth one. Who knows? So that's going to do it for me. If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to comment and like the video. Subscribe if you want to see more of this. Follow me on TikTok for more up-to-date daily content on baseball and football. And follow me on Twitter. And that's going to be it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed everything. Have a great day and Merry Christmas.